The Indian government took a very conscious decision to do away with patents for pharmaceutical products, for agriculture, food, and pharmaceutical substances and chemical substances. And the Patent Act was amended in 1970. So under the 1970 Patents Act, as it stood then, there was no product patents in these areas of technology, and the term of the patent was only 14 years. It was, well, good for the Indian economy, but not bad for the patent filers and the investors. And also in the early 70s, India also took a policy decision not to permit foreign investments into India. It became very, very difficult for foreign companies to establish base in India. It was very difficult for them to hold more than 51% majority stakes in India as well. But slowly in 1992, the Indian government started realizing that if they have to be in the world market and be a world power, it has to open its door for foreign investors. And that's exactly what I want to see, how open are we as a investment gateway today in India. There are still some difficulties, but there are a lot of positives as well. So in 1995, we joined the GATT TRIPS agreement, as it was called then, the WTO, and we as a developing nation was given 10 years moratorium to amend our intellectual property laws. So from 1995, when the reform started, until 2005, we were amending our Patents Act, and today we believe that more or less we are TRIPS compliant. We have a 20-year patent term, and we do offer patent for all areas of technology, except certain areas as mentioned in Section 3 of our Patents Act, which I'll go into. So we had, like I said, 1911 Patents Act and 1970 first set of amendments. 1995 to 2005, we made amendments to further be TRIPS compliant, and as Dr. Dinesh Patil said, from 2005 to 2024, we have already 9 sets of amendments. So we have under the Office of Control General of Patents, we have several officers all under the one roof. We have a lot of modernization initiatives. I will not go into most of them because Dr. Patil has already covered many of those. But there is an ease of filing and prosecution in the Patent Office. One of the most important things that I would like to highlight is that our Indian Patent Office website is practically real time. So if we as a patent attorney were to file a patent application in India, you as a client would know exactly what can be filed. If you were to receive an examination report or an office action from the Patent Office and we file a reply, you would know exactly when we filed it, and you will have access to all the documents. Today, almost all documents, the entire file wrapper of the Indian Patent Office, Indian patent application, is available to you at the IPO website, which is very easy to access, free of cost. This is a tremendous modernization step. The Patent Office also conducts regular training programs for its officers, and they also invite attorneys like us to be involved in those training programs so that the patent examiners, the new patent examiners, see the patent law regime from both sides. Recently, I was invited by the Delhi Judicial Academy to train young controllers of patents in the art of writing judgments and decisions. There are really fast efforts to make speedier disposals. About 5 years ago, we had some of the highest backlog of patent applications pending in India. It became worse during the COVID time, but last year, the kind of blitz that the Patent Office conducted, we used to have more than about 150 official hearings, oral proceedings every month. Almost broke our back, but when the business side was very good, and they actually disposed of more than 150,000 patent applications. In fact, the Indian Patent Office, the Control General of Patents, recognized me because I was fortunate to be the one to get the 100,000th patent granted. So that was fun. If you look at the regime here, the recent trends, this is from the Indian Patent Office's website. if you look at the trends here, the amount of filings, the amount of disposal, the amount of grant, everything has been going up really. The amount of number of patent applications that were examined, that reduced a bit in the last couple of years because Indian Patent Office was more concentrating on the last couple of years to dispose of a lot of pending applications where the responses have been filed to office actions, but they're awaiting final disposal. So they increased the grant of patents quite a bit, but the number of patent applications that were examined reduced. So they're almost more or less the same level. Now the Patent Office will start examining many of the pending applications. The filings by the Indian companies today. So there has been, as Dr. Dinesh Patel said, there has been a lot of incentive granted to small and middle-sized industries, women applicants, and startups, etc., to encourage the number of patent applications filings in India, and it's been very, very encouraging factor. And the number of patent applications being filed in India, both from indigenous applicants as well as overseas applicants, is increasing rapidly. Now, sorry, I'm doing it the wrong way. Yeah. Now, if you look at India was not, like I said, very high up in the world ranking, except in terms of population and poverty. But in the recent times, if you see that India's ranking has improved from 60 to 40 in the Global Innovation Index. So it doesn't sound very good just by numbers at this point of time, but if you see the galloping speed with which it has improved, that is very, very encouraging. The growth of AI-related inventions and publications and work that has been going on in India is again very, very rapid, and India has been investing, both the private and the public entities are investing in AI bandwagon, and today the startups have a valuation of over $101 billion US, and there is a lot of foreign investors also are actually jumping into it. The trademark examination side again, there's a huge disposal. Although on the trademark side, the applications which are being filed from business owners in India is much higher than the overseas trademarks, but unlike patents where it's the overseas filers are a lot more. Patent application examination and grant, I've already touched upon it, it's going up very well. Earlier, we had an intellectual property appellate board. So any adverse order of the Intellectual Property Office. So the way the Intellectual Property Office works, the way the Patent Office works today is that almost in 99% of the times, we receive only one office action, just one office action after you file a request for examination. Unlike US, etc., where you have 2 or 3 or final action, we normally get just one office action. And after you file your written response to the office action, if there are further objections, you go straight into oral proceedings. So when you have oral proceedings, you can receive about 1 month's notice. You can get 2 adjournments of 1 month each. And if the Patent Office hears you and refuses your application, you have a right of appeal before the Intellectual Property Appellate Board, which was abolished 2 years ago. Now the Delhi High Court has set up. Now the High Courts of India, so we have 5 IPO officers which are in Delhi, in the cities of Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. The 5 cities these are the 5 cities where you have the patent and trademark officers, and the appeals from decisions of those regions will go to the respective high courts situated in those states. So although we have one centralized IP office, still there are 5 branch offices. So it is not possible for anyone to file in any branch office. The jurisdiction is determined by if you are an Indian applicant or an overseas applicant. If you are an Indian applicant, then the jurisdiction for filing the patent application is based upon your place of business. And if you are an overseas applicant, the jurisdiction for filing patent applications will be determined by various attorneys situated. For instance, we are in New Delhi. So therefore, any patent application filed by me, regardless of the location of my client anywhere in the world, we could file it before the branch office of Delhi Patent Office. And which would also mean that if there is any adverse decision, I would file an appeal before the High Court of Delhi. So the Delhi High Court 2 years ago set up for the first time an IP code and a commercial code. So the IP division only deals with IP cases, and in the last 2 years that it has been in existence, it has disposed of over 2,000 patent appeals, which is very, very encouraging and extremely useful for us. And we have also have IP codes being established in Chennai and Kolkata. Unfortunately, the High Court of Mumbai is very, very slow in disposal of appeals, but hopefully that should also become faster in due course. Our economic growth, if you look at the economic growth, it has been the global innovation index along with the economic growth has been very, very encouraging, and we have been nicely growing there slowly with a nice good GDP. One of the best things that we have today is that we have the youngest population, the largest number of youth population in the world. So unlike Japan, for instance, where the youth population is decreasing and the older people, the number of older people is higher, today we have the largest youth population, which should mean that in the next 30 years or so, we have an incredible amount of youth population at your disposal to work, to be employed, and most of them are educated now. We have a large number of educational institutions which are opened all over India, and that's extremely encouraging. And therefore, when people like Hewlett-Packard or Intel or Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they all have invested huge offices in India, and they are able to get highly qualified young people to be employed, and at a cost which is much significantly less than what it would cost them to be employed in other countries, which makes us a very serious competitor to China, in the sense that our cost of labor and work is pretty low compared to other countries. Innovation. The innovation has been increasing slowly in India, not at a rapid pace, but on the global innovation index, we are actually growing up. On the global trade, we expect to be in the global trade. If you look at it, we are actually competing with some of the biggest countries in the world, and which makes us, India, not only a huge power for exports, India also is opening us a huge market for imports as well, and for foreign investments. So therefore, and Indians also have a reputation of spending maximum amount of money in spite of poverty. I remember that about 20 years ago, when I was doing a patent application for Motorola, they were really not too keen on filing many patent applications for their mobile phone technology, because they thought that India, a country of India, the size and the poverty, it is very unlikely that more than 1% of the Indians would possess mobile phone. But today, although we have one of the largest homeless population, one thing they have is a mobile phone. And so every single Indian owns a mobile phone today, and we are the largest and the biggest market for mobile phones. We are a country of paradoxes. And we have now, our finance minister has opened a national infrastructure pipeline, which is extremely good for us, and which is extremely good for attracting investments into India. And on this, there's a target, India itself has a target of becoming 5 trillion economy by 2025. And we are, maybe it's not possible to do that by next year, but maybe in under 3 or 4 years. There's an ease of doing business. That is the main motive of our Prime Minister of our country, and he has been taking very, very crucial steps to make doing business in India easy. We have fast-track approvals for foreign investments in special industries. We also have much greater transparency and accountability. we also have some hurdles. Unlike US dollars, Indian rupee is not fully convertible. So our tax rates are still very high. It can go up to 40 to 42%, which is pretty high. Our legal processes are still one of the slowest. We have infrastructure lacking in many parts of India, but that's a good news for foreign investors. If you go to any part of India, what you would find is that there are major road projects and infrastructure projects happening in every part of our country, a large country, and almost all the people who are doing that are Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, and Taiwanese. The number of Taiwanese investments that we find in India has shot up radically in the last few years. It started with a lot of Chinese investments, then Japanese and Korean, and Japanese and Koreans were really competing with each other. Now the Koreans have overtaken Japanese in India, and they've also overtaken Chinese, and now Taiwanese are coming in as well. So with the kind of infrastructure projects that are expected to happen in India in the next 20 years, it's a huge, huge opportunity for foreign investors to invest in India. The only problem is that there are still a lot of red tapeism and bureaucratic delays in letting you take your money outside India. That is something we need to have. Our patent law is very similar to most countries of the world, except that everything under the sun is not patentable in India. So we are one of the few countries in the world where we have a specific sets of inventions. Even if they are novel and inventive and non-obvious, still they would be precluded from patentability. So some of the things are questions like immoral inventions and things that occur in nature, simple admixtures which don't have any special properties, new form of a known medical substance which does not have therapeutic efficacy, methods of treatments, computer program per se. These are all few areas of technology which are specifically patent ineligible in India. So you cannot get a patent for these technologies in India, which has been a bit of a problem for a lot of foreign companies, but that's the way it is, that's the way the law is now. We have very strict deadlines. Dr. Patel mentioned that the ease of deadlines now, although the extension fees are exorbitant, but at least now if you miss the date for filing a request for examination or filing a response to office action, you can still get a condemnation of delay by 6 months, but at a payment of almost about US $600 per month, you can take extensions retroactively. But we also had a couple of wonderful judgments by the Delhi High Court a few months ago. Earlier, if you missed the deadlines, your application died, there was absolutely no way you could revive them. But now, under the law, under the recent High Court judgment, if the negligence was due to your attorney, and if you had taken due diligence, you can actually revive a lapsed application, which is good news. Our IP divisions and the commercial courts have been doing a great job, but we have had, I cannot go into the case laws unfortunately, but then I would have loved to have done that some other time. But I would just like to discuss how, for instance, we can look as a patent attorneys. We are all very familiar with how the patent offices work. A lot of times the applicant wonders, oh, I got a patent in US, but I didn't get a patent in your country, and vice versa. But that can happen. It's like looking at a half a glass of water. You can call it half full or half empty, depending upon how thirsty you are. Looking at a single point, you can actually have two sides of the coin. This is one of the cases which I was handling. This was, when you meat is exported to various countries, the meat is butchered and then it's packed and then sent through various cold storages under strict temperature control. Then it goes to the airplane, then it goes to the customs, and then lands at the domestic destinations, goes by train, and finally reaches the consumer. By that time, the meat has gone through so much of temperature changes, it is hard as a leather by the time it reaches the consumer. So this was an invention which involved tenderizing the meat. You inject a hormone into the animal while the animal is still alive, and the animal really, according to various purists, suffers. It suffers for about 10-15 hours before it dies. And during that time, so much of hormone is released into the animal that it becomes very soft, and even if it goes through various transport conditions, the meat reaches the destination absolutely as soft as butter. The Indian Patent Office rejected this application straight away because our law says method of treatment of animal which increases its economic value or its product is not patentable. It was also rejected on the ground that is immoral, because causing so much of suffering to the animal is immoral. The European Patent Office rejected exactly on the same ground. The order public, it says that the amount of suffering caused to the animal far exceeds the commercial gain. So therefore, patent cannot be granted. The Australian and New Zealand Patent Office considered the same proposition and granted patent on the ground that the commercial gain far exceeds the suffering caused to the animal. So looking at exactly the same situation, as a patent attorney, you would know that it can be argued on both sides, and that's what makes our life interesting, and that's what makes our profession interesting. And one of the most beautiful things about our profession is that patent attorneys and the patent controllers, I think we are a very exclusive, very fortunate club in this world. We are probably a few bunch of practitioners who have friends in every part of the world, in every country of the world, practically every city of the world. So it's my pleasure to be back here, meet my old friends, make some new friends, and I congratulate the Taiwanese Patent Office and the Asian Patent Attorneys Association of Taiwan, and also Intellectual Property of the Taiwanese Patent Attorneys Association. All of you, heartiest congratulations, and thank you for inviting me here. Have a lovely conference in the next 2 days. Thank you.